where they're like, I want to get, what is that? What's that mean? What means you much ice cream?
In my office, do you want it? I was gonna eat it.
Promotion, October 25.
Oh, 25th.
Best behavior, they're doing your best behavior.
That's what coaches me the day that we entered the insane. Yeah.
I'm gonna do even more.
We'll have a yeah. Because I think it was like a Monday. I do, I know. That's what I was thinking October 10th, which was. But I'm not gonna. Oh, sorry, 'cause it's it. Yeah, 10th would have been a Sunday. I have. Or maybe it was the 25th.
How's it going, Ed?
You seem pretty good. Hey, I'll probably be attending that P&G meeting.
Yeah.
Let me know.
Yeah.
I'll leave.
Either way, it's been a year.
Yeah. I am.
Be skeptical.
No.
Steady, you know,
We will call to order.
get on.
This is City Council Business Meeting for Thursday, October 20th, 2022. It is 6:01 PM. Caitlin, would you call a roll?
Councilmember Lester,
Here.
Baker. Reba. Here. Cool.
Here.
Livingston.
She was online, but she must have dropped.
She wasn't gonna be here.
We don't have a meeting.
She was the one that couldn't be, but I thought Brian was gonna log in. She was on.
We have quorum. Well, okay. Everybody's here. We do have a quorum, so we will move on. Item number 2 is Pledge of Allegiance. Say Pledge of Allegiance with me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, item 3 is approval of the agenda. Would anybody like to move any of the consent agenda items to the regular agenda? Hearing none, can I get a motion to approve the agenda? Motion. Motion by Cool, seconded by Reba. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same. And I see Jackie's back on 6:02, 6:03. All right, moving on. Item number 4 is a dedicated work session. This is a session for mayor, city council, and staff. It's expected to last about 1 hour, but if not, we will get right into the meeting as soon as we're done with the work session. So item A is strategic planning, goal setting, executive report, and action plan. So we wanted to discuss the goal setting sessions that we held earlier this year, the results, and see if you had any questions, because later in this meeting, we'll consider adoption of the goals. Just to note, department heads and council perform their goal setting sessions separately. It's interesting that department head priorities and council priorities lined up freakishly well. What we came up with for goals were 1 to 3 year objectives. And as I looked at these, many of them line up very well with our 2028 strategic vision that was adopted in 2018. What you will see presented here are the updated goals aligned with the 2028 vision. So Luke, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. So we have up on the screen here what those goals are that for each voted item. So what happened at our goal setting is first, all the department heads went around, came up with different concepts, things that were important to our community. Collectively, we put all those together and all the department heads voted on that. And we ended up with some top 5 list. When city council got together, they did the same thing. The votes on the left-hand side are reflective of council votes, not necessarily of the department head votes. The mayor bringing that up, saying that they aligned well. Within the final report that we received, it shows the comparison of those two. So I'm not going to go over that. I'm just going to go over the final goals that were adopted or that are up for consideration by council. The top vote getter was to make a strong commitment to the southwest corridor expansion for Norwalk. As a lot of you have seen in our future land use plan map that shows our planning area going south and west of Norwalk. So that was our top vote getter. Mayor and I discussed this. He brought up that he was seeing a lot of consistency with that 2028 strategic vision. And so within that vision, over here in this column, it identifies what particular item from that 2028 vision. And it was the 30% tax income from commercial entities. Main reason why those two are tied together is because that southwest corridor expansion is our next certified site location, a lot of our light industrial and future commercial growth expansion that helps us start to achieve that 30% tax base. The item before that we felt had a pretty close link was that to work with the county on limiting development outside of the city. As we grow out southwest, there's a lot of vacant land right now. And if that gets consumed with kind of that spot development that happens with little residential acreages here and there, that can really cause some issues for future growth. Luke Paris, Community Development Director, has already taken quite a bit of time working with the county and wanting to make sure he stays involved with their process to make sure we see some consistency back and forth with those comp plans. The next one is to maintain and or increase staffing levels to provide increased services and to accomplish the initiatives set forth in the strategic plan. And this one is assigned to our HR director. And I've just been talking with Carrie lately about our 5-year staffing plan. It's already working on it. Ones that received 5 votes. We need some sort of community center or space for a senior citizen center and then develop programming around that space. Could be an opportunity to co-locate both the library and community center, which would help pass a bond issue. This one is assigned with Mayor Phillips and lines up with our full service recreation complex. So at the moment, it seems to be the core building is settling in as a key facility, at least until we get to that next step with our library. Next one is a complete rewrite and overhaul of our zoning ordinance. Current zoning is a mix of older ordinances from Des Moines, and a plethora of amendments. We want Norwalk to grow and keep its character, yet current regulations are based on outdated policies from our neighboring community, the city of Des Moines. Long story short, that's where we utilized a lot of their boilerplates to establish the current zoning ordinance that we have. So we're just looking to modernize that. A key part of that in our 2020 vision was the establishment of more mixed-use developments. And within a new zoning ordinance that tends to allow that to happen, current Euclidean zoning does more than to separate all those uses out and keep them clearly distant from each other. So some of a more current modernized code would allow for some mixed use. Those receiving 4 votes, update the master park plan to reflect recent parkland acquisitions and adjust parkland dedication as necessary. This lined up with some of our trails initiative from 2028 vision. And you may recall that Robin has already been working on this, even though this hasn't got to council. She came forward and did an update. She's keeping track of all those acreages over time. Next one, host City Expo event, showcase what city departments offer and open up communications with residents. Ty, you'll probably key on that one, that likely you'll be a key player there. In fact, we even identified the city staff that this would be led by our marketing and communication specialist. The next one, the 2 that received 3 votes, review part-time seasonal staff wages scales and make any necessary changes. We just went through our full wage study that we did for all of our full-time staff. So we felt that that was a good next step. And then finally, look at outsourcing pet licensing and control. This is somewhat of a hot potato with a few different departments of who manages this. So looking into possibly looking at private services or other means to provide that. And we'd be looking at Chief Staples, our Public Works Director, Wayne Schwartz, and Kalen, and our deputy clerk to work on that. So then the mayor asked that we, just so it's all in one place, those 3 remaining 2020 vision items to go ahead and show up here, even though they didn't come up or were not necessarily aligned with any of the current goals, which includes safest city in Iowa, town center developed, and a vibrant downtown. So just as the mayor said, this will show up later under the agenda for action by council. And follow up from that, which I think we'll probably touch on that later, kind of if this is adopted, ultimately what those next steps will be and how we'll follow up.
Discussion, questions?
No, I think it's a good thing. We actually stay pretty consistent with what we're looking at, for our long range plan. Kind of interesting that department head said about the same concept.
Yeah.
Either we both made good decisions or we both really wrong.
The way things are going, I think the decisions have been fairly good at this point, I think. My opinion. All right, anything else? All right, so that was A. We're going to go to B, which is about alcohol sales at the core building. Staff's been working on concessions agreement for the core and Sportsplex. Please note that we've given guidance within the development agreement to contract concession services. Issue of alcohol sales came up, which prompted the need for more discussion with council. We're having this discussion to provide staff with guidance about the alcohol sales. While I personally initially didn't like the idea, I've come to learn that other public facilities that cater to both youth and adult sports now sell alcohol. So I may be behind the times in this regard. I'm willing to admit that. However, staff would like us to have a discussion about this to get some direction on moving forward. If we decide to allow alcohol sales, there will be more research done to draft a policy, and that policy will need to be formally adopted by council at a future meeting. So this might not be the final discussion we have on this topic. So Holly, did you have a statement from the Sportsplex guys, or yeah, you want to go ahead and?
Yeah, I did talk to him. I talked to Mike Mahoney with Sportsplex, and he said that they're very willing to discuss exactly how we would like those terms to look. They understand the liability concern on the city side with it being inside a city facility, but they have had contracts similar to this in other locations, and he named off several metro-wide facilities that have a public-private component, and the alcohol is being sold inside the public facility through kind of a third party. So we could talk to our insurance agency too, to see how that would work through their dram shop. So he just said that he's willing to sit down and talk about however that might need to look. And if we don't want it inside the city facility or on the city property, they could just draft it to where it's just outside and it's within their own facilities and their own concession. So he's just ready and willing to talk whenever we are.
Thanks. Robin, what's your opinion?
I'm okay with alcohol sales in the venue. I would prefer not to have it sold during city-sponsored youth events.
Okay.
But adult events, and if there's private rentals that want it sold, then I'm okay.
Okay.
With that. I know there would need to be some other things looked at as far as security and things like that, but initially, I would be okay with that, and then going forward, kind of evaluate it in the future, but that's staff's thinking on that for right now.
All right, thank you. All right, what's everybody think about?
So if it's a third party doing the concessions, the third party is responsible for not over serving, for checking people's IDs, that's all the liability is on them.
Yeah.
They just happen to be inside a city building when they're doing it.
Just like if they rented a facility from somewhere else, if they were the provider, they were the business, their insurance will have to cover that.
That being said, the city would have to be additional insured. There was almost a guarantee that if there was a Graham situation, that the city would be named as a defendant. So it's not absolute that we wouldn't have any liability on it. We could always try to argue around it because the city's contracted to sell alcohol out of their facility. So, absolutely, we have to have proper liability insurance in place.
And for those other facilities around the metro that allow this, I know the majority of adults are responsible consumers, but they are going to be around the kids. So, I mean, I don't know if you can restrict alcohol consumption actually within the field where the child's game is going on. It just gets too convoluted. Casey, you have to allow it or you don't, right? I'm talking myself out of this. I just, it's kind of sad that we can't have a child-focused, youth-focused sporting event without having to have alcohol involved with the adults. I don't understand why somebody can't go without a beer for a day, but I've never been at one of these events, and maybe after a whole day of soccer, I'd want to.
I think I would, but I agree with Rob. I think what she said makes a lot of sense. That, we could look at it for adult events. And when we have youth events, and maybe we don't do any alcohol sales, something like that. That might be a good separation.
So the city ran youth events.
Yeah, that's right. And that might be a good way to separate it out. Yeah, the attorney would have to work through that.
So if it's like if we rent the facility to somebody doing a tournament, and it's essentially a privately held tournament, even if that's for youth, it's not a city operated.
Go for it.
Okay.
Get hammered.
God, I don't really see a problem with it. We'll just have to have a good type policy and pay attention to it.
Okay. And then so what about city ran, like adult volleyball league? Would you allow for your program?
I would allow it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought so, but I just want to clarify that.
Yeah.
This might be a dumb question, but how how would we define youth for city events? Is it 18 under 21?
I would think under 21.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, because they shouldn't be drinking if they're not 21, right?
Right.
What
But,
do you think, Rob?
well, we do allow 18-year-olds to play the adult volleyball. So,
Well, it's just an event that's defined in your brochure as an adult
Yeah.
event versus a youth event.
correct.
Just do it that way.
Okay.
And then the third party concessionaire should not be selling the 18-year-old.
That is correct.
So you guys got everything you need to start.
You're looking to see whether we should even consider proceeding or not, and I haven't heard a bunch of no's, so we can, I think we proceed. Of course, council will see it again, and ultimately the council can suggest changes and keep it or not, but I think we're enough to investigate.
David, you got an opinion?
I was going to ask two questions: what Parks and Rec thought about it, and if it had been discussed at the Park and Rec Commission level. But I agree with what Robin said so far, so I think we're going down that path, and that makes sense.
All right, good deal.
I think as we bring back the draft policy, work our weekly draft policy, it would be good to involve the Park and Rec Committee in that discussion.
Yes.
Okay. Well, we'll move right into the council meeting now. Item 5 on the agenda is welcome guests and public comment. Thanks for being here tonight. This will be for non-agenda items, but we'll open up the dais for public comment. I'll give you a 3-minute time limit. We can't take action on these tonight since they're not on the agenda. Also, if you'd like to comment on any item in the consent agenda, now would be the time. So any takers tonight? Seeing none, we will move on. Item 6, presentations. First off, Holly, would you like to introduce our new economic development specialist?
Chris Cataldo. So we met, I don't know, 12 years ago or so, I guess, when he was working at Iowa Economic Development Authority. He was actually in charge of the certified site program. So he kind of wrote things on that end. Now he has to implement them. So it's kind of funny. He's learning there's a lot to this process now on the ground side, but he'll enjoy it. It'll be great stepping right in. But yeah, he just kind of blew everybody else away on the candidate search, and I knew right away it's just the right one. And he's worked with the state, federal programs, federal workforce development. So he's just got all those pieces to plug right in and just hit the ground running. He's been great so far. So with that, I'll let you tell more about yourself or if you have any questions.
Well, yep, as Holly said, I got over a dozen years experience with economic development. And I also I just came from workforce development. And I think those two kind of go hand in hand. Workforce and economic development are very important. So other than that, family lives down here, got extended family down here in Norwalk. So just excited to help this community grow in a positive way. And I'm looking forward to getting started.
Well, we've got plenty to do.
Sure, yeah, I discovered that. Like I said earlier, I said, I know Norwalk's growing, but I didn't know just to what extent. When you see what's going on, it's really exciting. So it's a great time to be here.
Well, we're glad to have you on the staff. And since you wrote some of this stuff, you probably know how it works.
Well, I kind of do. I wish it wasn't so stringent on some of the requirements. Regret that, but it makes for a really good site, and it's going to be very marketable, and it's really a great place.
Cool. All right. Thank you. Thanks for being here. Okay, next, marketing and communication specialist.
I would, so she is obviously our new, I keep saying communications and marketing, but she might want to flip that. Some people say marketing and communications. So whatever she prefers is just fine. But I kind of feel like right now we have a lot of heavy emphasis on the communication side. But I think that'll grow and change over time as she all of our efforts to market and promote the community. But again, just very, very impressed with Ty's background. I can't even explain it all. I'll let her do that, but she's got some really wild tech skills and super exciting. She's got a lot of marketing background. She's worked with cities and governments, worked on some political campaigns, so she understands that nature too. That we work with in those arenas, so she could do some of the cross work over to economic development on the commercial development side too, and help us with those things. So with that, I'll let her.
So, like Holly said, I have a very diverse background in marketing and communications. I've worked on several political campaigns, starting kind of at the city level for council members running for city council, all the way up to presidential level campaigns. So I understand the ins and outs of that. I come from a very diverse political background, so I understand, both sides of the party, and I understand how to keep things neutral. I also come from the marketing world where I've done a lot of digital marketing. More recently, I come from the tech education world where I worked for a startup company where we grew from 8 employees to over 40 employees in 3 years. And so we took virtual reality, so the gaming headsets that all the kids are wanting these days, and partnered with Meta and built online school campuses working with different colleges and universities around the United States to bring remote education into the hands of these children, so outside of like Zoom. So I'm really excited to be here. I have a lot of meetings set up. I've got Public Works and our safety, and today I spent the afternoon at the library, and so I know Luke's got a nice long list for me as well, so thank you for that. But I'm just here to work with all of our city entities, city council. If you have questions for me, or there's concerns, or there's things that you think are important for the public to know, definitely feel free to reach out to me. And so I've taken a deep dive headfirst into our communications for the city. I've broken down our social media platforms, found other ways to grow based on the B2B side. Thank you very much.
I look forward to using those wild tech skills.
You did joke today about me learning how to fly a drone, so we'll see.
All right, good. All right, thank you.
Yep,
Welcome aboard.
Yeah. All right.
All right. Next on the agenda is the consent agenda. We have expenditures, tax abatements at the October 6, 2022 membership regular city council meeting. A special Class C liquor license with outdoor service and Sunday sales for Pirate Pizza. We have a resolution to approve pay estimate number 6 to Sternquist Construction for Sunset Drive, Iowa Highway 28 and North Avenue intersection improvements project. A resolution to approve pay estimate number 1 to JB Holland Construction Incorporated for Colonial Parkway Regional Stormwater Detention Facility project. We have a resolution approving the purchase of personal protective equipment. A resolution approving Brian P. Jennett, MD, as medical director to City of Norwalk Emergency Medical Services. We have a resolution approving starting wage for part-time firefighter paramedic Brian Jones. We have a resolution ordering construction of certain public improvements for the Norwalk Core project, approving preliminary plans and fixing a date for hearings thereon and taking up bids therefore. We have a resolution ordering construction of certain public improvements for the Norwalk Civil Core project, approving preliminary plans and fixing a date for hearings thereon and taking up bids therefore. A resolution to approve the sale of unused or replaced items on govdeals.com. A resolution approving Greater Des Moines Partnership request for increase in commitment. A resolution approving fire services contract agreement pursuant to Iowa Code Section 28E between Martinsdale and the City of Norwalk, Iowa. A resolution approving the promissory note and mortgage and contract for the Norwalk Rehabilitation Assistance Program project for 707 Marie Avenue. And we have monthly reports. Can I get a motion?
question. You want a motion first?
What's your question?
I'm sorry, but I didn't ask you this ahead of time. On the Martinsdale contract,
Yes.
there's just one word that kind of bothers me. So great overall.
Okay.
In the response territory, it
Mhm.
talks about the limits that we're going to go to.
Yes.
And then it says that other agencies should be secured to provide assistance to the remaining territory, and that will be the last
Mhm.
call. Was it talked about, or could we make that Norwalk will be the last, instead of should be, can we make it would?
I don't know, you may come across circumstances.
Yeah.
where
I mean,
That couldn't be done.
Okay.
And that's, I understand what you're saying.
I mean, just the whole workings behind it is all the other agencies that we're requesting for them to utilize first are all still volunteer agencies. And so we're not saying that we won't go down there to offer assistance to the other territories, but we want to be the last call. I mean, if Jim is okay with changing the word.
Well, maybe that's not the word, but whenever somebody says to me should, it's like, well, I should, but it's easier just to call you.
Sure. And that was again, the whole intent of this was to pull back from what we were doing.
Right.
And to say you should be contacting somebody else before you're calling us. I guess.
For one, I think we can change it if we want to. I think also with these mutual aid agreements we have the right not to respond also.
Right.
And if the should turns into an always because it isn't strong enough, we can also use that too, govern it. But that being said, we can certainly change it if we wanted to also.
It's not something like I'm gonna die over, but maybe if this kind of language comes up in any of the other ones, maybe instead of being will, it's like, it's the intention.
Yeah.
Sure.
Just
And
that.
I think we all know that we've had an issue with mutual aid in the past. And so maybe I was taking a gentler hand to have some voluntary compliance instead of forcing them to call someone else. And we are seeing that going in a positive direction. But I'll use a different word next time.
We can also always use the termination of the agreement as well, just give 60-day notice. and say,
Sure.
We're done.
Yeah, and I think, we can rely on the fire chief to understand what's going on. And if it looks like it's not going the way we think it ought to, come back to it.
Right, so on those calls in those other jurisdictions, then you would be monitoring like.
Yeah, I mean, because we already have the right to, if they're calling us at any time, we can say, we're not sending our last available ambulance. If we don't have the resources available to provide protection for our community and provide the assistance, we can turn it down. We have the flexibility to do that. This was just providing some better guidance than had been given in previous agreements. So we are monitoring that on a day-by-day basis, quite honestly. If we're short-staffed or we have our first out ambulance, we turn down the request to go out of the city.
Okay, great. And I'm happy. Gentle persuasion in the past has not worked very well.
I understand.
Okay.
I understand. And I'll keep that in mind in the future. Thank you.
I had one other question too, Mayor, before we move on.
Sure.
The outgoing medical director, will we be at some point recognizing her?
Yes.
Yes.
I'll make a motion.
I second it. And thank you for doing
Yeah.
work on these agreements
Yeah.
and getting them a little bit better aligned with how we want them.
You're welcome.
Okay, so motion by Cool, seconded by Riva. Kayla, please call roll.
Councilmember Lester,
Yes.
Baker.
Right.
Riva.
Yes.
Cool.
Yes.
And
She dropped off. All right, so that motion carries. Item 8 is old and new business for consideration, discussion, and possible action. So 8A is a public hearing regarding an amendment to the Farms of Holland Plan Unit Development. We'll open up the public hearing at 6:32 PM. Luke Paris, I'm going to let you talk about this.
Sure thing. Pretty simple amendment here. We've got a potential project that's looking to locate in the Farms of Holland area north of the City State Bank parcel. And that user is our potential purchaser is looking to do a tunnel car wash in that site. And it's located within parcel 5 of the PUD. That parcel currently has C2 uses, which do not allow car washes. So they have requested an amendment to the PUD to add car wash as an allowable use. If you look at page 4 of the staff report, that kind of shows really what the amendment's doing. There's a section that's called parcels 3 and 5, because parcels 3 and 5 have the same C2 uses. So we would add a new paragraph in there that said allowed uses, parcel 5 additional permitted uses car wash. So that would allow them to proceed with the project if we wanted to. The rest of the staff report shows the kind of entirety of the PUD if you're curious about that. Other than that, that's pretty much the nuts and bolts of it. I don't know. I think one of the applicants was just trying to get on the Zoom, so I don't know if Alan is on Zoom or not, but we might have questions for him if he is on.
Trying to get on right now.
We had a pretty thorough discussion of this at P and Z.
Yeah.
And of course, they were in favor of it. And the fact it would be limited to just that. We discussed the intake and the outflow of the water, how that would work. And, I was surprised that this didn't take more water than it did, because that's kind of a concern for large consumptions of water.
They did indicate in that discussion at P and Z that from a water use standpoint, they recycle the water in the system. They mentioned 80% is what they said. They recycle about 80% of the water that goes through the system. So from that aspect, that's good environmentally and good for our own water and then also sewer system as well. Talked a little bit about concern with the ponds nearby from the Elizabethtown Park. And if, there was going to be a lot of runoff from that, and they indicated that most of their water stays, their wastewater stays within the car wash tunnel and obviously is discharged into the recycling system, then ultimately at some point into the sanitary sewer. Of course, there would be site drainage off of it as well that would be detained in the ponds.
The bank also had a representative at that meeting, the bank that's directly south.
Okay.
And he did not appear to have any issues with it. He just wanted to see what it was going to look like and what the item was.
Okay. Awesome. So Kaylin, have we received any oral or written comments on this side? No. Any other public comment on this side? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and close public hearing at 6:36 p.m. Item 8B is the first reading of an ordinance amending the Farms Pollen Planning and Development to add a car wash as an approved use in PUD parcel 5. So we just had the public hearing on this amendment to the Farms of Pollen PUD. Luke, you got anything to add?
No, sir.
All right, any discussion, council, questions?
I think it'd be a good deal, actually.
All right. So can I get a motion to approve the ordinance?
Well, second.
Pick one. Motion by Rivas, seconded by Cool.
There you go.
That's the other one was the other way around. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Kaylin, would you call roll?
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah.
Lester.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Item 8C is a resolution approving the strategic goal setting executive report and action plan. So at a work session, we discussed the strategic goal setting sessions that we had earlier in the year, and this resolution will officially approve the goals and action plan or adopt the goals and action plan. Luke's going to be working with the champions of each goal to outline action steps and follow-up. Luke's also going to provide us with updates of progress, and that's probably going to show up on his quarterly or as part of the project management worksheet. Anything to add?
No.
Awesome. Any questions or discussion?
Oh, that would give Luke something to do. That'd be all right.
Yeah, so we did well. Now that Chris is with us, Luke's got a lot of free time.
No kidding.
All right. Any other discussion? Any public comment? Hearing none, can I get a motion to approve resolution as presented?
Motion.
Second.
Oh, David got in there just a
He
hair
tried.
late. Motion by Cool, seconded by Reva. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Kalen, would you call the roll?
Councilmember Cool,
Yes.
Lester,
Yes.
Reba,
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Item 8D is resolution approving satisfaction development agreement and mortgage release for LaQuartia LLC. So there's a company that's interested in purchasing LaQuartia, and it's good news because there's also plans for expansion. Part of the sale process involves cleanup of some old agreements, and we've had a development agreement with LaQuartia since 2012. And they're in the process of selling the business and need us to release our mortgages on it. So Holly and Jim, so I don't flub this any more than I already have, I'll let you take it from here. Anything extra?
Well, it's just it's pretty much a formality. We entered into a development agreement with LaQuartia and Mr. Eckhouse, who's here. And he satisfied the agreement, the city satisfied the agreement, and with him perhaps selling the business and everything, the proper step and need step is for us to release mortgages that are in place and acknowledge that he's satisfied all those requirements, which he did.
Yeah. All right. Session.
I'd say that hobby thing paid off.
I first met Herb years ago, and he's been a real good corporate citizen. So I think having him here, it's kind of nice to see him. And if he sells and he's off to his wherever his retirement vacation spot is, good luck to him over the years.
Absolutely.
All right, so can I get a motion to approve that resolution?
Motion.
Second.
All right.
There you go. All right.
All right. Motion by Cole, seconded by Lester. Any further discussion? Okay, I gotta ask, what are your plans?
My personal plans?
Yeah.
We'll see. We gotta get through this, and then I have a granddaughter in California,
Okay,
so definitely want time with her.
awesome. That's awesome. Good.
That's a draw, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm gonna have a grandson out in Boise.
Yeah.
So I understand the distance thing.
Yeah. And we went out there for a couple of months last winter. It was really
Good. All right. Kayla, would you call roll?
Councilmember Lester,
Yes.
Reba,
Yes.
Cool.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Thanks for coming.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate you. being here. And thanks for being a great business for Norwalk for so
Yeah.
long.
Been terrific, actually.
All right, item 80 is the first reading of an ordinance amending chapter 176 subdivision regulations of the city of Norwalk, Iowa to update stormwater regulations. So before I turn this over to Luke, I want to mention that Tony Belize is our city engineer, and he is primarily responsible for stormwater review. He couldn't be at the meeting this evening, but he wanted to make sure you all know that he was involved in the process with Luke and his staff. And Luke, I'm going to let you take this one.
Sure thing. So a few years ago, way pre-pandemic, city was involved with Capital Crossroads initiative for stormwater regulations across the metro. That involved about a two and a half year process of going to monthly meetings, learning about stormwater stuff, learning about best practices, then kind of culminated in discussions about a model ordinance. And that model ordinance has been kind of shopped around to other metro communities. We kind of wanted to stay back a little bit, didn't want to be the one blazing a big trail with things. But so we've gotten to the point where we feel pretty comfortable taking some of these things forward. The gist of it is the Iowa DNR's created something called the Iowa Stormwater Management Manual that is lots of different things on how you can accommodate stormwater on a site and lots of different techniques, I guess, if you will. And so we wanted to take some of those techniques and things and fold them into our subdivision regulations. I did want to note that there was a miscommunication between Tony and I in this stuff. And I talked with him this afternoon. He had intended, when he did his review, to delete one of the sections, and it's not deleted in the ordinance before you. So we can table if we want to after we discuss it. We can approve the first reading and we'll make that correction go into the second one. There's no rush to get this approved. So just however we want to proceed once we get to that point. Running through some of the things in this new ordinance, what Tony had wanted us to reference was utilizing the SUDAS manual that has some of its detention practices. SUDAS is another manual that has techniques and how different things are designed. He wanted us to remove section 2 out of this that has 3 subsections A, B, and C, because he felt like the SUDAS manual adequately handled some of those. The most important things in this are, and there's a typo there because there's a second number 2 that will get corrected as well. But there's a section talking about natural conditions are defined as meadow in good condition. And then it goes on to talk about this curve number. Not to bore you with all the minutia of how that works, but essentially those are assumptions that a designing engineer would make when determining how big their basin needed to be. Our current ordinance gives no guidance for that. So there's a lot of ability for a designing engineer to tweak those numbers to come up with a basin that fits the desires of the developer. Putting number 2 in there about this meadow condition and curve number, and then also number 3 about the soil groups and soil types that they will use as assumptions, will go a long way in the city side of making sure that the developing and the designing engineers are making good assumptions and they're not going too far out of the bounds of what they should when designing detention basins. And then the rest of this is just when these things become applicable. Right now, you may remember when we've had small redevelopment projects go in, sometimes stormwater is tricky to do, and do we have a requirement or not? The rest of this kind of talks about when we require things and when we don't. And then another thing, when you're looking at this, the red sections are new things that we've added. The black sections are just the old code that we want to retain as well. The last kind of important new section is number 9. That talks about a staged outlet control of a stormwater detention basin. Real quick, what used to happen with detention basins, you got a big pond and you've got one pipe coming out of the bottom of it. And that pipe's meant to release all the water at a certain rate for a 10-year storm event, say. Well, what happens is every more frequent storm event that happens just goes right through the pond, not detained at all, right? It goes right through the pipe because you got a giant pipe. It's not holding any water back. That has negative impacts on downstream properties because of velocity of water coming out of that basin, eroding streams and stuff. A staged outlet says you've got to have a small pipe at the bottom of the basin that releases the 1-year rate, the 1-year storm at a certain rate. And then you got to have a medium one and then a bigger one, and then usually some overtopped things. So it stages release of the water based on different rain events, and that protects the downstream channels a lot better than current things. Hopefully that makes sense. It took me 2 years of going to stormwater meetings to get that all beat in my head. So yeah. Other than that, I guess the last thing there, we do have another section amendment of the accompanying materials that we require for our plan that will start requiring maintenance plans for the stormwater facilities that are privately owned. So that way they have to upfront give us an idea of what maintenance steps the HOA needs to take to ensure that facility is maintained and in good working order.
Questions?
So the section that was deleted.
Yes.
Okay. So it sounds like, which one is more strict, I guess? The SUDA standard or this standard? Because I thought that was the whole reason the stormwater discussion started, was to maybe go a little bit farther than pseudos.
So number 2 that Tony requested that we delete is related to what's called unified sizing criteria. And that has to do with the design of all the infrastructure side of things. So after they design the basin and use their assumptions, then they have to figure out pipe sizes and all that stuff, right? So it has to do with that. I don't have a great explanation for why that is because it gets into more engineering things, but talking with Tony this afternoon when he called me about how we missed this, that he wanted deleted, he believed that not following the, I guess, ISWIM for those standards wasn't hurting us anything. He's, in his opinion, we're already doing a lot of that just by him requiring people to do things. When he gets call from an engineer, how are we doing something? Well, this is what you need to do. So he believes that SUDAS does that stuff. I don't know enough about SUDAS and ISWIM manual to tell you definitively how that works.
I was just wondering why ISWIM came up with something different if it was already okay.
That I don't know.
When Tony had talked to me, letting me know that he couldn't be present at the meeting also today. And he said that during the second reading, he would absolutely be available to answer those questions.
Yeah.
So we can get that to him ahead of time and have him prepared.
I just want to make sure because we've had problems. So it sounds like section 9 takes care of what I've been having heartburn over.
Mhm.
Just want to make sure that whatever we do fits better with the rain events that have been happening lately versus what happened.
Again, the big thing is putting those standards in place for the calculations that they do at the very beginning of their development. They do these calculations to determine what was everything in the undeveloped condition, what's everything going to be in the developed condition, and then that difference determines what they got to do for a basin. And so putting in the requirements and saying, no, you can't have this number be more than 71. You have to use these soil types unless you do a report that says it's different. That's going to go a long way to making sure that the bowl is the right size. And then the rest of it's just the outlet and the sizing of things downstream and all that, which, again, talking to Tony today, he was very comfortable with the current standards we have still meeting that. Getting into why he wanted to go with SUDAS over ISWIM, I would, like I said, leave that to him to describe in better, maybe more verbose terms than I could use.
Sounds to me like he thinks it might be redundant, but we can take care of that on second reading. if you
Sure.
care to.
We can remove the second reading.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And I appreciate being on the leading edge, not the bleeding edge. That's good.
And I to that point, I think there is a little bit of trying not to be the most, when you look at every city that's adopted the model ordinance has piecemealed it in different ways. So it's very difficult to say, well, they adopted all of it or they adopted some of it and to see what they did. So talking with Tony, he felt like this would put us in a good place. We're certainly not going to be the most lenient in stormwater anymore. We're probably not going to be the most strict. And, it's going to put us in a good place with where we want to have good design from developments. So.
Any public comment? Can I get a motion to approve the ordinance?
I'll motion it. We'll take a look at second reading.
All right, so motion by Cool, seconded by Reva. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Karen, would you call roll?
Councilmember Riva,
Yes.
Lester,
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, motion carries. I just want to hear that next name for some reason. I just paused. Item 9 is council inquiries and staff updates. Luke.
Yes, I do have a few items. First, our admin policy work group meeting. We have quite the list developing. So we'll put it together here hopefully within the next couple weeks. I'll send out some dates and times that we can get together. Purchase agreements for the Escherman property and the Dunn property have both been sent to those property owners for review. So that was excellent. A huge step to be able to get those off. Thank you, Jim, for pulling all that together for us. Legislative priorities, I'm glad that Holly brought up that Ty has some experience in the political arena. I've been purposefully waiting on our legislative priorities until our marketing communication specialist got started, because I'd like to kind of revive that a little bit, maybe take a different approach with the elected officials. So I plan to work through, that's the long list I gave her. That was one of the things on that list. And the last thing, I'm going to bring this up more just to make sure that Chief Porter covers it. But the mayor and I, Gene and Chief had a meeting with Cumming, their Mayor Highfill, their clerk, and their outgoing city administrator. And we spent a lot of time talking about the fire and EMS contract for services. The main reason I'm bringing this up is I just wanted to recognize Chief Porter's, I think overall has done a great job with some of these mutual aid. The way she's been able to talk with people, I think just through conversations, I've been able to help bring some numbers down. The information she put together, that Gene was able to help me go through that, and in presenting that to Cumming, it really helped them understand our perspective on wanting to make sure we're equal. So anyway, I'll let you talk a little bit about that later, but just wanted to say thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
That's all I have.
All right. Kayla?
So with the cold temperatures at night this week, unfortunately, we have had to winterize all of our park restrooms. So all park restrooms are winterized, closed for the season, including the pool and the sports complex. And the winter playbook is being finalized, and that should be out soon. And I think that Sarah already includes you all in that email. If someone is not getting it and you guys want to receive a copy, let me know. We can make sure to get you added. That's all I have.
Gene?
As you have heard from me before, the library is enjoying doing a lot of programs and events to engage our citizens. And I just came from a very engaging program that included 713 people, 230 mini pumpkins given away, 17 winter stray cat shelters given away to help the cats, 1 rabbit, 1 pot-bellied pig, 1 cow, 1 horse, 2 donkeys, 6 sheep, 7 goats, 3 llamas, 2 alpacas, 8 volunteers, and 1 surprise visit from the fire truck. The kids loved that. Thank you very much for adding to our event. So thank you for your continued support of all of the things that we're able to do at the library. And I would have gotten here earlier, but I was ushering farm animals and pumpkins out the door. So if you would like one of the November, December activity calendars, it is very full as well. And it will involve a visit from Santa. So it's not quite as cool as llamas, but close. Also, thank you for your support of our library staffing. With Carrie's help and Ty's help, we got the circulation supervisor position posted today, and I'm looking forward to getting some great applicants for that. So again, thank you. We have started our 2 new part-time circulation assistants in training, and they're doing fabulous. And tomorrow, our adult services librarian is going to have a baby and start maternity leave. So that's exciting too. So that's all.
All right, thank you. Holly?
I'm just wondering if we're allowed to have office pets, because I've been wanting to advocate for that for a while.
Do
Maybe
it.
It could take 1 year.
No.
I think so. Just 1 rabbit. That's all I want.
The rabbit.
We should have our hotel market study back tomorrow. Fingers crossed. A lot of information coming back on that study, which is good because it shows a lot of activity swarming around in the hotel industry. We're still working with the 2 big flags. Things are going pretty well with them on negotiating and their land purchase agreements moving forward. And then we have a 3rd hotel that's also interested. So we'll see what happens when this market study comes back tomorrow, how well we would support a 3rd smaller hotel along with 2 bigger ones if those 2 come through. But still it shows good activity, and several other parcels in Norwalk Central have kind of the next step into their purchase agreements for those parcels. So soon we would be able to announce those users, and they're all really good users as well. The grocery store is still moving forward. They're just determining if they want to buy a larger lot because it had a little bit of issue with some right away that they needed to kind of readjust their site plan just a tad, but they also plan to close on their parcel in November. And then we have the Southwest Industrial Corridor and the Certified Site Project kicking off officially next week, now that we're fully staffed and Luke doesn't have to help with all of those fun parts of it, but that will be a big project and a really important one for the whole metro area, so we're pretty excited about it. Herb, I'm gonna miss working with you. It's been great. You've been a really great business owner, and I'm happy to see that this is working out hopefully the way you wanted it to. It seems like a great company coming in. That expansion will be phenomenal. We're super excited about helping with that. So please keep in touch with us when you go on the road. But other than that, again, just thank you for the staff that they're already just doing an amazing job. I'm super excited to see what's coming for Norwalk with this team. So.
Sure.
I just, we're interested in buying our company. We're very skeptical about the reception we received at Norwalk and the economic development team. And, they came in, we met with Holly, it was awesome. We went over and just the approach you guys are taking to making space, including industrial development and your long-term development plan. Was very convincing to them.
Awesome.
I accept this great job.
Great. Good to hear. Good. Thanks. Gene.
Started working on capital budgets this week and last with staff, and you'll receive some calendar invites next week. For the whole group, it'll mainly be January, I think it's January 17th and 19th, when we'll get together for CIP and going over the full budget, and we'll reach out to the finance committee for the December dates as well. Also reviewing our financial policies. That's kind of time. It's been about 3 years, so we'll get the finance committee together for that. Just worked on some rebate calculations with Michael Foods and Echo Valley, Capital City Fruit. It's that time of year again. And next meeting, we'll bring the audit report and the urban renewal report to you. That's all I have.
Thank you. Chief, welcome back.
Thanks. Yesterday, we had life event number 6, Officer Dunlop and a cast of other officers went above and beyond their normal activities and convinced the school to take a school bus and kids out in the house, greenhouse for pumpkin picking and corn mazing. And they had a great time. And then, as you saw, we placed a charge on the homicide suspect today. And that was a lot of work by several of the officers, especially Sergeant Reed and Investigator Heckley. A lot of loose ends to tie up. And now that he's charged, there's still a lot of work to do. So at some point there'll be a trial, and I don't know when that'll be, but I'm sure it'll be a big deal because there'll be a lot of us down at the courthouse for a long time.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Chief.
We just finished up fire prevention week. We went to all the schools, talked to all the kids about fire prevention. We had a fire prevention open house on the 13th that was well attended. We had Smokey the Bear there for the first time. That was pretty cool. Yeah. We hosted the Lions Club on the 12th. Councilmember Lester brought the Lions Club in. And that was interesting to talk with that group to show them how the fire department has transitioned over the years. So they stayed a while, hung out with us. So that was fun. And like Luke said, we did have a really successful meeting with Cumming last week. We've definitely listened to what council has been asking for to ensure that Cumming is paying their equitable share compared to our taxpayers, and we are definitely moving in the right direction. The points that we brought up, they agreed with, and so we're finalizing some numbers to get to them to bring back a new 28E agreement for you all to review to ensure that we're where we need to be. So. Yeah, that was good. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks, Wayne.
So one thing I have tonight is an update on County Line Road. West Des Moines indicated this week that it should be open around the end of the month. So.
Looks nice out there too.
Yeah.
The only thing that I was going to mention,
Luke, you mentioned the admin policy meeting. I saw Stephanie with a wondering look on her face. I think Lindsay already beat me to it. She already scheduled a meeting for us next week.
That's awesome.
Perfect. So yeah, so that is scheduled and on the docket, I think, next Thursday. So that's all I have.
We are currently working on doing updates to the building codes for the 2021 codes. When we brought the 2018 code to you all, we brought them all together at once. So the building code is not just one code, it's like 15 different things. And that was a lot. So we plan on bringing them incrementally forward as we get them done now. So November 3rd, we'll have the residential code. Residential code's kind of its own thing. And then you've got commercial code and then all these other subsets of things. So we'll have residential on November 3rd and we'll bring those others forward as we get them done and they're ready. Permit wise, we were at 15 single family permits through September, similar into October. So we're still on track for about the same year that we had in 2020. So higher year than normal, but nothing like 2021 that was abnormally high. Code enforcement wise, not a whole lot going on with grass and stuff. We did have a fall on a sidewalk in Lakewood. Went out and looked at that. There's a lot of heaved sidewalks. So we've contacted those property owners with a notice that they need to repair those trip hazards. Comp plan hearing at P&Z on Monday. So that's exciting. Get that going forward. We look to bring that to you all on the November 17th meeting. LMI projects, we approved the Marie project just tonight for a patio. The project on Norwood had to delay in getting their siding. So I believe they're putting the siding on this week, get them paid out. We're looking at the Marie project, hopefully being our last project that we'll do at the city. I'm working on agreements with MIPA and Warren County Housing Trust Fund to be able to pair our LMI dollars with their Housing Trust Fund dollars, have a larger pool of money, and then have them run the program. So awesome all around from that regard.
I've got a few things actually, Mayor.
All right.
Today I attended the chamber luncheon and Lucinda Sperry is leaving the chamber. She'll be taking a job down at Warren County Economic Development. So good for her and not good for us. But they are expanding their office over there and doing some remodeling too. And also when I introduced myself, I let them know that if they had any questions at all about streets or any concerns, they could contact me and I would give them Council Member Lester's phone number. So yeah, I assured them of that. Let's see. At Park and Recreation meeting, we had a pretty good discussion of the capital projects that were coming up. We kind of had an overview of those. So she familiarized some of the new committee members there. And then I also attended the library had a training session. It was really pretty cool. And the wife and I really enjoyed it. But it was about Hershey's chocolate and the Hershey, there was a presenter to give the history on it. I did not know that every Hershey's chocolate that you buy, the profit from that goes to support their orphanage. He set it up that way about 90 years ago. And so it kind of makes me want to go buy Hershey's chocolate for Halloween, you know?
Yeah.
That's a pretty good deal. Also, I don't know if y'all noticed, Hubble sent out an invitation for a celebration on November 8th. And they want to celebrate the completion of the Legacy project. It's sold out. It's all done. And of course, that's election nightmare. So there may or may not be some conflicts there. Let's see. I had a WRA meeting and we voted to go ahead and do the Ingersoll sewer. That was an interesting project because initially that was forecasted about 2 years ago for like 17 million. And it was to run from the Ingersoll down past the ballpark and down into the river. Well, anyway, with the cost of everything going up, okay, so we're going to take it about halfway for 17.5 million. Okay, And then probably next year, we'll do the other half. And the state's good with that.
Okay. Because Fleur's kind of tore up, so it'd be a good time to do it.
Yeah, we
Not
thought
Fleur.
maybe if we tear up Martin Luther King. No, actually, it's going to go next to Martin Luther King. We won't tear up Martin Luther King. It's okay. I was being sarcastic. Let's see. And I think, yep, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. David.
I've got a couple thank yous. I don't have much more than that, but thank you to Luke Parrish for that presentation of the Lions Club on the comp plan. They're still talking about it. Thank you to Holly for coming and tying that comp plan together with the development piece and talking about Central Park. That was awesome. Or Central, Norwalk Central. That was great. They're still talking about those pieces. And then I have heard all about, thank you to Chief Porter and your staff that came and gave them coffee and cookies as well. They've talked about that and they got to see the living quarters.
You got cookies?
Yeah, cookies and coffee, but it was a great tour of the fire station, and even old people enjoy seeing fire trucks, and the smiles on people's faces when they see fire trucks is so much fun. So those three. And then this week I had a chance to work with Officer Alcorn and Inspector Hepperly on some counterfeit bills. So I wanted to thank those two publicly because they did a great job, came up and talked to me right away about things. So good job.
All right. Thank you. Stephanie.
Two things, both MPO related. The Iowa DOT Commission held its public input meeting Tuesday, October 11th, and I made a presentation to the commission on the region's priority projects for the MPO. Both those that the state was involved in funding and those that they were not. And I think that went well. And I made sure that Norwalk was mentioned twice. And then second, Purple Heart Highway interstate designation. Just really briefly. So the next step to getting approval is we have to have all the engineering done for the pieces that need to be fixed to meet federal highway guidelines. We also need to get state waiver and federal waiver on weight and speed. The federal wants the state to go first, the state wants the federal to go first. And both of them said, we don't want to do anything till we have this report. So it's just another. So the MPO coordinated, got a bid from HNTB to do the engineering analysis, $206,000. And it was brought to the policy and exec committees last month the decision was that the MPO would pay it out of reserves. Well, this month in the executive committee, there was pushback on that, saying that they didn't want to do anything because they didn't want to spend $200,000 if they didn't think that the ag community was on board with that, but the ag community won't be on board until the federal and the state. It's like this, it's a mess. So this is my fault. I said, well, would it make them feel better if instead of the MPO paying for the whole thing, the communities that front that pay a portion, say 25% or 30% of the report cost, and split it according to population and frontage, which was done like 15 years ago when the first report was done. So that is going to come before both committees next month. It will cost Norwalk $2,900 possibly, so it's not that much. And hopefully we will get a little bit farther. But what I told them to present it to the committees, the instruction I gave the MPO staff is to liken it to a certified site, because the communities who are digging into this more than anything else have certified sites and have involvement in that process. And I said, you have to spend money upfront in order to gain the benefits. And this is a huge regional benefit. So it's a huge regional certified site. And it's a relatively small cost, but I don't know how that's going to go. But we will probably be getting a bill, if you could just put that in the budget for next year, $2,900 roughly.
Jim, nothing. All right. I don't have anything for tonight either. So I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion by Rita, seconded by Cool. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say Adjourned at
Designation, yeah.
7:12 p.m.
Not bad.
Not bad. We started there.
Yeah.
Cookies and coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah, our next meeting.
Yeah.
It's gonna go like, yeah.
You know, we can get it signed right away.